Welcome! In this video, we're going to talk about leg lifts in Haidong Gumdo forms, part 1. This video is a response to Just a Bug's video about the idea of leg lifts in Korean martial arts in general. He brought 4 really good points. I want to talk about them with regard to a living martial art like Haidong Gumdo, where we actually have, an idea of what the forms look like and all that fun stuff. And I want to modify the last one and then add 2 other categories, right? One category is not going to do anything, it's just going to be there, being its thing, right? But I want to add 2 other things that are, from my opinion, true from what I've seen in Gumdo forms. I decided to break this into 2 videos because those are essentially 6 points I really want to give decent attention to and decent amount of examples from. Decent amount of examples being like 2 or 3. So it's not going to be like I'm going to give you a whole textbook of examples, but I want to give you enough so you kind of convey the idea that I'm trying to portray. And I don't want these videos to be like 30 minutes long. So hence why we're going to split in half. His video will be linked below. I highly recommend that you watch that one first to get the full understanding. The super Cliff Notes version, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page, right? First one is a misunderstanding or a miscommunication of what that knee is doing, right? So for the most part, it's going to be like translation error more than anything else. A second one is avoiding a target, and we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. Adding power, and then stopping a spin. So I'm going to modify that last one and add 2 new ones that you'll see in the next video. So you have to go watch that one. The first point is about misunderstanding or miscommunication. So I'm going to break this into 2 major groups of the same thing. So under that same umbrella, but 2 different types of miscommunication. Obviously there can be more than that, but I want to break that down first. So the first is a misunderstanding or a mistranslation from source. So in terms of reading something from the movie Double Tonji, for example, we have the original Korean, where we're trying to maybe read a translation if we don't speak or read Korean. Maybe we have the images, and we're trying to translate what we're seeing into an actual action, which is a perpetual pain in the butt for anyone reading manuscripts, right? So whether you're reading traditional, Korean, traditional Chinese, traditional Japanese, traditional Europeans like Fiore, or reading any of the German longsword styles, there's always going to be a level of misunderstanding, miscommunication, or something that's just lost to culture. As an example, so we have a guard in Gumdo. So I'm actually going to use 2 different examples here. So first, we have something called palseongse, right? Now, obviously, I could actually ask someone who knows better than I do. So palseongse is this guy, right? So pal means 8 or 8th, right? So this is not necessarily like the 8th guard, as in we have 7 before and maybe a few more after. What's up? Right? So one thing could be something has just been lost to either translation or to play on words. So for example, the kanji for 8 kind of is disrespectful to use a sword like this, but this is the top part of the kanji, and that's the second part, right? It's kind of like a little double dash. Well, that sort of looks like what the arms and the hands relative to the sword are doing. So there's a pet theory out there that palseongse is actually named because of the kanji. You might think that I'm being really, really nitpicky about that, but we have a combination called gwengchapegi, which is based entirely on the kanji. So there, right? So it could be a play on words. If we take a look at this other guard, I believe this is called Spot the Thief. I have no idea where I got that idea from, so I could be very wrong, so someone in the comments might correct me, right? So that, again, could be a play on an idiom, right? It could be a play on something culturally happening that we just no longer have access to. Or it could be something that's maybe a little bit more, I won't say literal in this case, but maybe this was, for example, a position held by a sentry holding a post and they see something happening, right? So spot the thief, this is just a generally ready position to be aware from. So miscommunications can happen, especially from a written to read perspective, but to a certain degree, Gumdo actually does not have this issue. We are fortunate that the source of Gumdo is alive. Like he's the president of the organization, right? So the person who created the system, created the forms and all that fun stuff, is alive. There's not going to be as much of a miscommunication because we can actually just ask the source. So to a certain degree, that form of misunderstanding is not as viable for especially a newer martial art or a living martial art like this one. However, there is going to be a lot of the other one. Another form of misunderstanding is simply you're taught differently or there's different interpretations of the same move. So trying not to cast shade where I don't want to cast shade because that could be dangerous. So if a concept is taught generally speaking, right? As in like, okay, just do this hand position. Don't ask why, just do it. And then you're good, right? So this is something that happens a lot with forms-based styles especially, right? So it's like, okay, just mimic this form, mimic this move, and then you're good. And you're kind of, so a lot of people who want to understand a form better will add their own interpretations into it, which can be a misunderstanding from the source material. However, misunderstanding does not make it bad, right? So for example, you can make a use of something that is more useful than the original intent of something. So for example, duct tape. Right, duct tape, originally used to like fix ducts. I'm assuming that's true. That's just based on the word. However, there's now so many different uses of it beyond that one thing, to the point that there are, frankly, uses of duct tape that are more generally used than to fix piping. So there's maybe an original intended use of something, but just because something is a translation or a change of that idea doesn't make it bad, but does change the original intent. And that's what I do on this channel. Essentially, I take an idea that I've either gone through with a form or I've seen somewhere that I want to interpret and do a little bit more understanding, and ultimately I'm going to deliberately either misunderstand, kind of change a perspective, or ultimately just throw something out if it does not, fit my needs. Our second point is going to be about voiding a target. So what I mean by that, and what he meant by it, is you are removing a piece of your body, specifically like your ankle or something like that, from being struck by getting it out of the way. Okay, right? So classic example of like, oh, I'm going to like sweep kick you, and I'm just going to not let you do that by not having a foot there for you to sweep kick, right? So let's take a look at a few examples from a Gumdo form. So the classic example that I'm going to be taking is actually from Form 9. So Sangsu Gumbup 9, Kuban, right? So we're actually going to take a few ideas from specifically this combination. We're going to tweak it a little bit for each of them, right? So the combination I'm thinking about is, so from here, we're going to do a neck strike. Notice that my knee is up. We're going to do that later. We're going to aim. We're going to do a knee strike as we kind of shift out. Here, right, cover, switch, and back. Okay, taking from the side just so you have another perspective as well. The one that we're going to be focusing on is the last knee up, or essentially like the penultimate move or so, right? So from here, neck, ankle, cover, switch, and back. Let's first see if any of them are really voiding a target. So the only way that the first one is voiding a target is if someone's aiming for my ankle from behind me and I'm like, no, right? Not likely, right? The second move is I'm moving it this way. So maybe someone's trying to aim for my ankle when it's up and I kind of move it out of the way as I strike that knee, maybe, or strike that ankle, right? The third one is what I'm talking about, right? So we just struck their ankle, covering. I'm going to switch out of the way and come back in. The idea that I usually teach with this one, at least why it's there, right? I'm actually going to counter-example this with my augmented 4, right? His fourth point I'm going to change up a little bit. You can use this as voiding a target, right? So we're here, we just struck an ankle, covering, they're aiming, so now that my head is covered, this is a little bit lower, so maybe I can switch my feet to void that target as I'm going to cut him as he's trying to struck an empty space, right? So we're here, we're up, we switch, and we're going to get back in for that cover. I'm just going to show you like the 3 combinations I'm really going to use. So another combination that is in Bangkok, so this is going to be in Bangkok 7 specifically, is we're here, we strike in, knee up, and we're going to land and do some stuff, right? So one idea of that is potentially voiding the knee. So if I just struck in this way, maybe honestly, you're going to be aiming for my head, so maybe not so much, right? But by pushing off this, it's going to void not just my ankle, but by that push, it's also going to get my head voided, right? So if I strike in, pushing off, bring that knee up to void back in order for me to come back in with a strike. So in a way, that void is not a leg void, it is a head void by virtue of that lean back in order to lean back forward. And the third one I'm going to do, the fourth one I'm just not going to do until last because it has one purpose to do, right? The third major one, and you're going to probably see which one of the 4 this is working with in terms of Just a Bug's 4 criteria, right? So from here, we can also do bang, 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 right? So using that knee as a leg lift as I'm finishing this cut. Is that voiding a target? Probably not, right? Unless if someone's right behind me and I'm like, no, like get away from me. Maybe do like a side kick if I really want to. However, it's probably not voiding a target. In terms of the 3 active understandings of this one, right? So the last 3 points that he made, I find the other 2, so the using it to augment power and using it to stop a spin are far more common than using it as a voiding technique. I believe he also mentioned the fact that yes, you can void something or you can just block, right? They functionally have very similar things unless if the act of voiding is going to add something else, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, then really no, right? So yes, can you do it? Is it a good use? Meh. Is it used specifically in Gumdo? We actually don't know. We're actually going to invoke the first thing of misunderstanding or miscommunication or lack of communication, where none of this has been explained, at least to me personally. So could be voiding a target, but so far of the knee ups that we've done, only one of them has really done that. So let's go back through those combinations, right? So Sangsu 9, right? The first knee up is this guy. Is that more powerful? There's a quick test for that. Let's not put our foot up and see if we can get a little more power. Yeah, right? It didn't add any more power by adding the leg being up. That was a weird sentence, but I know the message was received. So the addition of the leg up did not augment the power. Cool, cool, cool. Well, we have a few of them. So we're here. We're going to use the hip change to strike the knee. Okay. More powerful. It's more powerful grounded than it was with the knee up. So that also did not add more power. However, we have one more in that combination. Cover, switch, and back. Okay. Cover. About the same. It did not add enough power, if it did add power, to justify, first of all, the weirdness of it, and justify the potential dangers of raising a knee, right? I think that is the best example of voiding a target in the Gumdo forms, but it has not added more power. Now a combination that should actually look pretty familiar if you saw the video, right? So from here, if we strike up and back, the fact that I can actually rock forward and throw my weight into that cut is, I'm going to, spoiler alert, is going to add power to it, right? So I just don't want to spin out and kind of ruin the wall. So if I'm here and I'm up and I come in, bang, 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 right? It is going to add a little more power. Part of it might be psychological because now we're like, ready and go. However, you can still generate good power by doing something even a little bit smaller than that. I hope this will not get me in trouble because it is a forbidden form. But Jembek, we'll see if I mention that, I get kicked out. Jembek has a very specific move that's unique to Jembek compared to the other Gumdo forms, and that is a rocking blocking cut. Okay, so what I mean by that is we're here, we're kind of rocking back. So it is a leg lift in a very small way, so it's not merely a step forward, but we're rocking back in order to get a little bit more of that power behind the false edge block. Not necessarily adding more power in terms of a responding cut, but maybe a little bit of speed, right? So if we're here, up, back, right? Same thing going back, up, back. Kind of like over the shoulder. It should be a little bit higher than I've been doing, but using that leg lift, power up, and come back down. The last combination that I showed, right, is that spinning combination. So from here, if we land as we cut, bang, 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 with my leg up, we're going to have not much more power. So again, would I generate more power if I was here spinning, bang? Probably, right? I'm also going to be more stable in general. It's always good to know that you're probably right to split a video in half because goodness knows how long this is going to be if I try to do it on one take, right? But those are the first 3 points that Just a Bug brought into play. I highly recommend taking a look at his video, and his Jeduk series is also really interesting. Highly recommend it, right? But stay tuned for part 2 as we talk about that spinning aspect, as well as tweaking that spinning and adding 2 new categories. But with that, make sure you stay safe, stay humble, and keep training.